I keep seeing the narrative that Ashes of Creation has had a major pivot in its design and has not stayed true to its original design principles. People said after the Freehold stream that the game is not the same when pitched in its Kickstarter because they claim Freeholds were once going to be available to everyone that wanted one, and now they are not. So I decided to do what I do, investigate this and see what the truth is, because people that have been making this claim have not really been providing any actual evidence for this claim. That's something I did last year regarding combat. Some people made the claim that combat has pivoted from being tab only early on to this hybrid combat that some people say leans action, but it very clearly leans tab. And I found plenty of evidence when I did that hybrid combat has been talked about since the very early days by Steven. Tab only was never the original intent. So I wanted to do the same for Freehold, since some are claiming that they're drastically different. So I did 4 things for this. They're actually pretty simple, and you can do the same if you want to double check me. First, I checked what was said about Freeholds in the Kickstarter. Basically, there was nothing said about Freeholds in the Kickstarter. So any ideas people had about what Freeholds were during the Kickstarter might just be speculation on what they thought Freeholds were. Next, I searched for the word Freehold mentioned by Steven in the Discord and sorted by the oldest comments. This comment is very vague, and maybe is where some people might be getting the impression that Freeholds for all was the idea at one point. Varderick asked if there was a limited amount of Freeholds, and Steven replied that Freeholds are only limited by space in the open world. Finally, there was a comment in 2020, which is the last one from Steven on the Discord, until the recent comments about Freeholds after the Freehold livestream we just had. Basically, Steven says that the Freehold system is different from the Arc-Age housing system, and that the land options are expansive and not restrictive like in Ashes. I can see how some might take this as there might be ample Freeholds available. And of course, we now know that is not the case, with the current number being somewhere in the low thousands for Freeholds available, and a registered player number of up to 50,000 per server at some point later after launch, so less than 10% of the player base will be able to get a Freehold. Which, to be fair, I think could be too low of a number of available Freeholds, and I've made the case for that in previous videos. But yet again, I do have to mention that all of this is on paper and subject to change in Alpha 2 based on testing and feedback. Then I kept digging a little more and double checked by checking the Freeholds article on the wiki. MediaWiki software has a revisions feature so you can see past revisions. I checked the first revisions and nothing was cited regarding how limited access to Freeholds might or might not be, really until the recent updates. Finally, I also checked the official Ashes of Creation YouTube channel using a website called Video Mentions. I searched for every instance of the word Freehold in all of their videos. And when I did this, I couldn't find any instances that really mentioned the exclusivity of Freeholds until June of 2022. In this video, he said that everyone that puts the effort in should be able to achieve a Freehold, but it would be a major achievement, which we now know might not be completely true, as I'm not sure everybody, even people that put in the effort, will be able to achieve one, with less than 10% of people being able to get one on the entire server. So in the end, the only real evidence was these old Discord messages. And I'm not even really sure that's enough evidence that Steven has ever really said that everyone would get one. And even if that is what he meant, does that really change the core philosophy of the game in any way? I would offer that it does not, because from the very beginning, things like risk to reward, no participation trophies, and the game is not for everyone have been stated repeatedly. The 5 major design pillars of Ashes of Creation were first mentioned in March of 2017, and for years they have reiterated these pillars over and over again. And the current iteration of Freeholds fits these design pillars perfectly, in my opinion. So no, the core philosophy of the game has not changed, despite some fairly significant changes to the design of Freeholds over time. And I want to expand on one thing I just said, iteration. This is an open development MMO and one that collects a ton of feedback. Why would they take all of that feedback and never make any changes? I definitely want them to consider feedback and make changes as needed. We have already seen some good changes come from this open feedback philosophy, most notably for me the split body root motion changes that were made with combat, which I feel are a very positive direction. And even if this was a completely closed development project that took no feedback, it probably would have a ton of internal changes that you never even heard about, as that is common in development, and it is especially common with MMO development. But as Steven has said many times, the key is to stick to the core design when making these changes, and I very much am on the side of those that think they have stayed very true to the original core pillars of this game while making necessary changes over time. And that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.